Hello, students. Welcome back for the continuation of cellular growth and division. And before we get to our notes here today, make sure you're opening your books to where we left off yesterday. And while we're doing that, why don't you pause me for a moment and review the first three phases of cell division. Let's see if you can remember the first three phases of cell division. Okay, we are back, and we're going to pick up now with number 4. Number 4 is anaphase. Anaphase. And during anaphase, I have another alliterative device for you. Wrong button. I may have a good memory aid, but not a very good control of this computer. The key word here for anaphase is away. Anaphase, away. Key word. Anaphase, away. This is going to help you hopefully remember what is happening during anaphase. So let's get into the nitty-gritty details of anaphase. Here's the deal. You knew it had to happen. The chromosomes yesterday spent so much time and energy copying one another and getting together and lining up, getting ready for their dance. Well, here it is. They're separating now. Or in other words, they're moving away from one another. Here we notice we've got the two centrioles pulling in opposite directions. And as a result, our chromosomes that were connected, they were copied and connected, have now broken apart from one another and are moving away from one another. It would be like taking silly putty, if you've ever played with silly putty, and pulling silly putty. I wonder if I have some silly putty here. I used to have silly putty with me all the time. I'm sorry, I must not have the silly putty anymore. Oh, wait, is it here? No, I think it all dried out and I had to get rid of it. So you'll just have to imagine. Imagine silly putty pulling silly putty apart. It stretches pretty well until it reaches a certain point. When it reaches a certain point, snap, it breaks apart. And that is what is happening here to our chromosomes, except remember, we had an exact copy of chromosomes being made during interphase. And so half of the chromosomes are going one way, half of the chromosomes are going the other way, and they're exact copies of one another. So hopefully you've had time to draw this illustration in your notes as we continue with another item of importance here, remembering that during anaphase, the chromosomes are moving apart from one another. They are moving away from one another. So remember, anaphase, away. Anaphase, away from one another. And check this out. This is really cool, I think, because under magnification, and hopefully we'll see this tomorrow, Thursday, we'll see this under magnification taking place. You can see here's an example of a cell, and inside the cell you can see the nucleus with the chromosomes that have now moved away from one another. There's a gap between the chromosomes. You can see the spindle apparatus have pulled them apart so far that they've kind of split in half. This is a great slide of anaphase. You can see them literally moving apart from one another. I'll get the hang of this soon enough. Moving apart from one another. And this is key. This is a key in moving forward, because in order for cells to divide, you know that every cell has a nucleus. And within that nucleus are the chromosomes. And the chromosomes contain all of that important information in order for that cell to do what it needs to do. So if you just separate a cell and you don't separate the nucleus first with all those chromosomes, that cell is not going to function correctly. So it is so vitally important that you get the nucleus divided, including the chromosomes. Otherwise, it would be like giving you a computer, a brand new computer with no motherboard in it, with no guts in it. That computer's not going to work very well. You've got to have that information contained in every cell, in every nucleus, and you need the chromosomes in order for that to happen. So all of these phases are important, but anaphase is the first one that separates the important information into two parts. So let's continue to step 5, or phase number 5, which is telophase or telophase. I like to say telophase. Telophase starts with the letter T, and 2 also starts with the letter T. During telophase, 2 nuclei form. 2 nuclei form during telophase. Again, super important. Let's illustrate this. It kind of, to me, it looks like a mask of like the Lone Ranger or something. But you can see, or actually better yet, you know what it looks like to me? I'm getting a little bit hungry while I'm making this video, and I'm thinking about the Texas Roadhouse. I love going to the Texas Roadhouse for all of their peanuts. I love peanuts. This reminds me of the shape of a peanut. And if actually, that's a good example. Think about this as a peanut for a moment, because if a peanut has this outer shape to it, and there are 2 bulges, how many peanuts are inside of that shell? 2, yeah, which is kind of what's going on here with this diagram during telophase or telophase. We've got 2 new nuclei formed, and as a result, we call this the stage during which mitosis is complete. Remember, mitosis is just the division of the nucleus of a cell. Here, we've got the division of the nucleus. Mitosis is complete because 2 new nuclei are formed. Mere definition of mitosis is nuclear division. So during telophase, mitosis is finished because now there are 2, during telophase, 2 new nuclei are formed. And it's kind of like a peanut. Peanut ends in a T. Maybe that'll help you remember too. I think of a peanut when I think of telophase with 2 new nuclei. But the whole cell is still connected. That's what the outer line is representing. The outer line is representing the cell. The cell is still all one, is just one cell with 2 nuclei. Little bunny foo-foo hopping through the forest. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. And during telophase, one more thing happens. The chromosomes begin to uncoil. They begin to unwind. They begin to relax a little bit. They don't have to impress their partner at the dance anymore, because guess what? The dance is over when there are 2 new nuclei. They can't dance with their perfect copy anymore because they are completely separated into new nuclei. So they can uncoil, they can relax a little bit, unfurl, unwind. So chromosomes uncoil during telophase. So here's a picture of a slide during telophase, and let's check it out. What's happening here? This is called early telophase, but this entire outline here is the cell wall. Now you can imagine, well, let me ask you, what kind of a cell would this be if it has a cell wall? Plant cell, very good. So here we have a plant cell, And it's not green simply because it has been stained a different color, in this case red, just to make things a little bit more visible to you. And here, even though we have one cell, we can see that there are two nuclei inside this one cell, an example of telophase. That brings us to the sixth and final phase of cellular division, which is called cytokinesis. Cytokinesis sounds quite different from the previous five phases. Previous five phases were all called some type of a phase, right? They even had phase in its name. What's up with this? Well, let's break it apart. Let's dissect the word. Cytokinesis. Cytokinesis, first of all, is when two new cells are formed. And now let me explain to you what the word cytokinesis literally means. Cyto means cell. Cyto means cell. A cytologist is someone who studies cells. Cyto means cell. Kinesis comes from the same Greek root word that the word genesis comes from. Perhaps you've heard of the word Genesis, and maybe you know what it means. Does anybody know what Genesis means? Perhaps you knew it means beginning. So cytokinesis literally means cell beginning, or the beginning of a new cell. And it is during cytokinesis that two daughter cells form. And so here in our diagram, we don't have one cell anymore. We've got two cells. But check this out. In both of the cells, and this is super duper important, so really focus on this for a moment. Count the little V-shaped chromosomes in each of the cells. How many are there, everybody? In each? 4. How many were there in our original cell at the top of your page? 4. From interphase to cytokinesis, through those 6 phases of cellular division, the cell has perfectly made an exact copy of itself, right down to the level of the chromosome. Because in this phase of cell division, we have new chromosomes in each of the two cells. Remember, you can't have one cell with the original chromosomes and the other cell with no chromosomes. It would die. It would not be able to function. The whole purpose of cellular division is to multiply by dividing. Multiply by dividing. It's the only thing in the world, cell division is the only thing where things can multiply in number by dividing in half. And it's through this process of cellular division and the result of cytokinesis where we have two new chromosomes in two new cells called daughter cells. So here's a picture of cytokinesis. We have right after telophase, we've got cytokinesis. We've got two identical cells. They're a little bit paler, you might say, in their cytoplasm than a surrounding cell, simply because they haven't grown fully yet. That's how you know that these two cells have just completed cytokinesis. They haven't been filled with a lot of new nutrients yet to stuff their bellies, but they are cytokinesis examples. So there you have it. We've gone through all 6 phases or stages of cellular division. We're going to continue with our notes and finish up our notes today, and then we'll take questions at the end. But before we do, and you know what, we're going to come back to this picture later on as well. But let's see. Let me quiz you right now. I'm going to quiz you right now. I'm going to point to one of these cells here, and I want to see if you can tell me what phase of cell division do you think is being illustrated. We'll start with this one. What do you think is happening here, everybody? What do you think is happening here, everybody? What do you think is happening here? How about here? And finally, here. I'm not going to tell you if you're right or not, because this is what your lab is going to be all about tomorrow. So stay tuned. But study your diagrams for tomorrow's lab. I will tell you that. All right. One more thing before we move on to the next topic. I want to try and give you another memory aid, because you are going to have to memorize the correct order of cellular division. So here's how I remember the correct order. What do we have pictured here? Hopefully you said an apple tree. How many of you like apples? Raise your hand if you like apples. I love apples too. Not the fermented kind we talked about yesterday. All right, or last week rather. Now, I like apples so much that if I had an apple tree, you know what I would do? At the right time of year, of course, I would pick my apple tree clean. I picked my apple tree clean. Now, I think that's a simple little sentence you could write down in your book as a memory aid. I picked my apple tree clean. Now, raise your hand if you have any idea why I'm giving you this silly little phrase, I picked my apple tree clean. Hopefully you saw that the first letter in each word corresponds to the first letter of each of the phases of cell division. I, P, M, A, T, C. I picked my apple tree clean. I, interphase. Wait, I shouldn't be telling you. You tell me. When I point to the letter, you tell me what phase of cell division am I referring to here. So I, P, M, A, T, and finally C. Hopefully you got them all correct. So now let's move on to the next little segment of info here for the remainder of our time. And I want to begin with a question. Where do you live? Pause for a moment to tell me where you live and be specific. All right, you may have told me a number of things. You live in a house, on a street, in a town, etc., etc. You may have given me the numbers of your house. Well, I want to talk about this because it's going to relate to our next little mini topic here. You folks here live in White Township. Here's my attempt at drawing a map of White Township. Here's Belvedere over on this side. Here's Oxford over here. But here's a little map of White Township. Here's the Delaware River over here. White Township is part of a larger civil boundary called Warren County. Here's my quick attempt at drawing Warren County, which exists in the state of New Jersey. In fact, this is where Warren County is, right here in the nose of the Native American whose profile exists on the western border along the Delaware River. New Jersey is just one of 50 states that exist in the United States. In fact, here's where New Jersey is on the map of the US. But the United States is only one country found in North America. And North America is one continent that exists on planet Earth. Do you see how we go from a tiny level all the way up to a much larger level? We could go in reverse and start with Earth and work our way backward. But in both cases, you're talking about different levels of organization. And these levels of organization are involved with living things as well. So we're going to begin on the smallest level of organization, level 1, which is called the cell. Now, on your PowerPoint, if you view it on your own, you can probably read this a lot better. But in this version, my red letters are being overwhelmed by the red blood cells. So I'm going to read this to you as you write it in your book next to level 1 cells. Cells are the building blocks of all living things. The building blocks of all living things. Should sound familiar to you anyway. Basically the definition of a cell. All right, so cells, basic building block of all living things. There you can see it a little bit better now that I've turned it black. And an example of cells are these that I'm illustrating here, which are red blood cells. And I have to admit, to me, I'm hungry again, and I'm imagining that they are jelly donuts. And I just want to reach over and bite into one of them and suck out all of the jelly. I know they're not really jelly donuts, but oh boy, I could go for a good jelly donut right now. How about you guys? Imagine them being covered with powdered sugar. Oh, golly gee. All right, back. All right, they're not jelly donuts. They are red blood cells. All right, red blood cells. An example of level 1 cells. These are the smallest level. Kind of in our previous example, they're like the white township in our levels of geographic organization. All right. Beyond level 1, we have, as you can probably imagine, level 2. Level 2 are groups of cells working together. And no, they don't have names like Kleenex or Scotty or other names such as those. Those are another type of tissue. But bodily tissue, organism tissue, are groups of cells working together, all with a common purpose and a common objective, you might say. An example of a tissue would be muscle tissue. And a common slide that you might look at might include the frog muscle. And in fact, that's what this is. These are frog muscle tissue. And you can notice that they are made up of lots of cells. These darker areas are the nuclei of all of these cells that are functioning together as muscle tissue. So level number 2 is tissue. Moving up from that, we have level 3, which are called organs. And organs, like this actual human heart, organs are groups of tissues working together. Now, I want you to find a pattern here as we move up the levels of organization. Might help you remember the description of each level. So level 3, organs are groups of tissues working together. This is a heart organ made up of heart muscle tissue working together. And imagine, here I could give it boom, 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 boom. I'm giving it CPR. Boom, 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 boom. How should I move my hands? Here we go. Boom, 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 boom. All right, I'm giving the heart CPR there. All right, so level 3, organs. And an example, again, the heart is an example Lungs are also an example. The brain is an example. Stomach is an example. You could probably give me other examples of organs as well. But organs, level 3 of organization. Level 4 are the organ systems. Organ systems are groups of organs working together. And again, we're not talking about pipe organs that you might find in a cathedral of some kind. They're bodily organs, organism organs. Ooh, I gave a word away for our next level, too. So, organ systems are groups of organs working together. In this example, we have the heart and the lungs. That is an organ system called the cardiovascular system. Here we're calling it the circulatory system. But organ systems are organs working together. This brings us to the 5th level of organization, which is called an organism. And if you think about the organism, whether we're talking about human beings or some other type of organism, organisms are groups of organ systems working together. By the way, as you're writing these descriptions down, have any of you caught the pattern? Raise your hand if you have caught the pattern and share it with us. Hopefully, you've seen the pattern that as we move up the level of organization, the description is all the same. It's groups of the previous level of organization working together. So, an organism, groups of organ systems working together. And look up your list, and you can see how that pattern has been consistent all the way from the first level of cells. That might help you in your studying when remembering the various levels of organization and which one comes after or before another level of organization. So, an example of an organism is you. You are a complete organism. And as a complete organism within your body, you have organ systems working together. And within those organ systems working together, you have organs made of all the same kind of tissue. And all of those tissues are made up of cells, which are the basic building block of life. So whether you go up or down on the levels of organization, they are all connected to one another. And it's important to recognize this level of organization, especially if you want to go into the medical field or the biological field, because it can help you solve a lot of problems, perhaps, if you know what level of organization you are working with. So I'm going to end this video today for now, and tomorrow we'll be doing our lab activity. So until tomorrow, I'm going to say bye-bye.